So for these evening sessions, it's a question and answer session. Some of you have written questions down. I hope you're all doing well in your practice. You survived the storm, so the weather passed by. I was asked to make an announcement tonight. Unfortunately, not everybody here keeps the precepts. Some of our furry friends, they don't keep the second precept. So last year we had a problem. We have 1 or 2 foxes living in our forest, and foxes like to steal shoes. So, because they didn't come in and take the precepts, there's not much we can do. Sometimes if you leave your shoes outside of your tent at night, in the morning they've moved. Sometimes just around the place, sometimes completely disappear. So be warned. Actually, wombats also sometimes like to pick things up. The first year we were here, one night, I hung my towel on the clothesline to dry, and during the night the wombat managed to pull it off the line and drag it about 100 meters to its hole, and I only found it 2 years later. Same towel sitting in his hole, and they like to take plastic bags, clothing, bits and pieces, so be aware. There's a question. When anger arises, it can feel like a powerful, righteous monster. Is this feeling a habit which can be dissolved by the practice of mindfulness and/or metta? Is it just the mind trying to help us, which can be retrained through practice? Well, there's different ways to deal with anger. We all have anger from when we're born. The first way of practice, you might say, is to see the suffering of anger, the suffering in your own mind, and the suffering you might cause others when you speak or act in anger. That leads you on to try to use the precepts as a way of restraining your outward show of anger. So you undertake not to harm physically. So the first precept is not just to avoid killing, but also intentional harm, physical harm of another person or even an animal. Not to harm through our speech, so not to speak in aggressive, abusive, harmful ways. We also keep the precept there. And even the 5th precept, one reason why we don't drink alcohol is because when we do drink, it's harder to control our emotions. And often when people are drinking, they say and do things that harm others out of anger. So the first practice is try to train yourself in the precepts to restrain the worst of your anger, the outward display. Then you have to start establishing mindfulness, practicing mindfulness in daily life, and looking at anger. What is it? So the Buddha said, look at feelings. Anger always arises first just as a feeling of tension, pain. And sometimes it's just a mental feeling. They call it domanassa vedana. So a feeling of anguish, pain, sometimes just a memory, sometimes different things prompt it or trigger it. It's a mental feeling. Sometimes it's triggered by a painful physical feeling. So when you're sitting meditation, you get pain in your knee or your back. After a while, it might give rise to some aversion, anger, maybe get angry with the monk for not ringing the bell quick enough. Maybe get angry with somebody for making a noise or disturbing you. Anger quickly finds an object, something to fix onto, but it starts as a feeling. So if you're mindful enough at that moment, you watch that feeling with mindfulness, and you don't let it create craving and attachment in the mind. You just let the feeling to be a feeling. The Buddha said we practice mindfulness to know feeling, the feeling in the feeling, or to know feeling as feeling. So dukkha vedana or domanassa vedana, just to know this is an unpleasant feeling. That takes a lot of mindfulness. Mindfulness of your body, maybe mindfulness of the breath, mindfulness that catches the feeling arising and prevents craving forming around that feeling. So if mindfulness is strong and clear, maybe you just see the feeling arising into your consciousness. It's unpleasant, but you just watch it and let go at that point, and the feeling will pass. Even if it's a recurring feeling, when you have pain, it keeps coming back maybe. But you'll just keep establishing mindfulness and just observing and knowing feeling as feeling. So when mindfulness is strong, we can do that without any verbalization, no mental chatter, no images, no thoughts forming around it. We're just watching the feeling as a feeling. So all our unpleasant feelings are coming from old karma, but coming back to us, like we just chanted, I am the owner of my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, heir to my karma. Painful feelings, painful mental feelings, physical feelings are karma coming back to us. Things we've done in the past are bringing their reaction. And we have to accept that. If we have enough mindfulness and then we reflect with wisdom, we maybe can maintain what we call equanimity, upekkha, detached awareness, just knowing the feeling, accepting it's come up, but then letting go and not creating self, identifying with it as me, mine, myself, a person, my pain, my suffering, just watching it in a detached way. Then we can quickly let go of anger. But as we all know, anger is a very hot emotion. Sometimes it's like a bushfire, it just bursts up, explodes into our consciousness. It's triggered by hundreds of different things. Sometimes externally, unpleasant situations, sometimes internally. We just remember or think of something and it makes us angry. It's very fast and sometimes overwhelming. So that's where your sila, your precepts help you just to have some self-control and composure when you see yourself getting angry. When you know you're angry, you become careful because you know it's dangerous, it's a harmful state of mind. And you have to work hard to contain it, just like a bushfire. They put what they call a containment line around it. I mean, sometimes they burn the bush around it so it can't burn anymore, or they bulldoze the bush so that the fire can't cross the containment line. That's your sila. You make a boundary. You say, even though inside I feel angry, I'm happy, I'm not going to cross this line. You draw a line. And that gives you some space and some time and the ability to turn back and look at the anger as a mood, as a feeling, an emotion, and then as thoughts as well. And the Buddha said what feeds our anger is wrong thinking, unskillful, unwise thinking. That might just mean you keep thinking about the thing that makes you angry. Remembering, thinking, so you keep getting angry. Sometimes it's very obvious for other people, but ourselves, we can't see what's going on. But it's wrong thinking, unskillful thinking. So that's another reflection, isn't it? If you're angry, you're wrong. This is completely opposite to, like we say, we become righteous when we're angry. Often we're justifying it, finding reasons, excuses why we're angry, blaming other people, situations, events. Sorry, I'm just distracted. There's two kangaroos boxing outside. You see, they're caught into their anger. No sila. We keep dwelling on the thing that makes us angry, and as long as you keep thinking about it, well, you'll keep getting angry. So our job is to bring out the mindfulness and the wise reflection. The Buddha's word is yoniso manasikara, wisely reflecting. When we get angry, there's unwise reflection going on. Ayoniso manasikara. So you keep thinking of the person or the event or the thing or the pain, holding on to it and then building something out of it, creating something out of it, verbalizing, thinking, remembering, and so on. And part of the delusion of anger is that we justify it and we feel, I should be angry, I'm correct, this is right, because something's happened, therefore I'm angry. And you have to break through that delusion through mindfulness practice, just break up the words, break up the habit of fixing the mind on the person or the thing that causes the anger. Bring it right back, ideally right down just to the feeling of tension or ill-will, aversion, the unpleasant feeling. And just watch that and don't let it lead on to any mental, verbal or physical action. You just watch it, you contain it until it subsides. And we can do that, and probably you've all done it already in your meditation. Many people, they meditate and they have a painful feeling arise, get ill will arising around it, but then they just watch, let it go, and they can see it's impermanent. What is impermanent is not self, anatta. It's just a feeling, just a mental formation, sankhara. There's no person in that. It's a cause and a condition. You have a memory or a painful sensation, you attach to the pain, thoughts come, we get angry. But if you interrupt that process with anger, with mindfulness, you can see there's no one here, it's just a process of cause and effect. And you can start to interrupt it, break it up, watch it, let it go. Of course, if you keep thinking in the wrong way, the habit gets worse. It's like anything, it's a habit. So sometimes we find we keep getting angry and the power of our anger gets worse. We become more physically affected by our anger, we become tense, adrenaline comes, different chemicals, hormones come out. If it gets really bad, we're like those two kangaroos and just end up having a fight with someone. Or if there's no one around, then we just start punching tables and throwing things and shaking our fists, whatever. It's because we keep dwelling on the object of our mindfulness, holding on, thinking unwisely, making it worse. And it becomes a habit. So like the modern research says, it becomes a pathway, a mental pathway, which even affects your brain cells. And so some people become more and more habituated to anger. They keep losing their temper. And so maybe when you're young, you lose your temper with difficulty, only occasionally. But if it keeps happening, well, maybe just every little thing starts to make you lose your temper, because it becomes a habit. So it's our own responsibility to start working on this with mindfulness, with wisdom. And the obvious place you direct your mind is to develop more tolerance, patience, kindness, compassion, the opposite of anger. And if it's things that you can't change, can't get rid of, well, patience is vital. Learning to be patient and tolerant of painful feelings, painful mental feelings, painful physical feelings, unpleasant sense contact, with things that annoy us when the weather is too hot or it's too cold. Be patient with it. The Buddha said, make your mind even like the earth or even like the ocean. You go on a trip on the sea and people throw anything they want into the ocean, don't they? Pollute it with rubbish, sewage, oil, bits of plastic. If you ever go into the sea, you notice it's got all kinds of junk in it. But the sea never complains. He never says anything. It's calm, uncomplaining. The Buddha said, make your mind like that. You have to be able to accept the pleasant and the unpleasant in life, because it's impossible to run away from the unpleasant all the time. It's impossible. We have, as part of our life, we have to face unpleasant things. A lot of it we've done the causes ourselves, and we're experiencing the results. Some of it is just by being a human being. You live in the world, there's some unpleasant parts of life, weather and feelings of tiredness. Just because you're living your life, doing things, you feel tired. The weather is not how we like it. Sometimes there's conditions around that are not to our liking. There's too much noise, too much pollution, too much this, too much that. Some of it we can't do anything about. Some of it we created ourselves. But all these unpleasant experiences we come into contact with, the Buddha said, practice patience. Keep your precepts, practice patience, and bring up mindfulness and reflect wisely. If you keep thinking about something that makes you angry, basically you've got to teach yourself to stop. Change the way you're thinking. That's where you bring up loving kindness, compassion, understanding, sensitivity. If it's another person, maybe you put yourself in their shoes. Maybe there's reasons why they do things that make you angry, and the more you understand them, the less angry you get, because you have understanding, sensitivity arise. If you keep breaking your precepts, well, put yourself in the shoes of the people who you're speaking to or harming through your actions. Say, if I was them, would I like this? If you're angry and you're about to tell someone off or abuse them, be rude to them, just stop and say, if I was them, would I like to hear these words? The more we can do this, the more we interrupt the flow of our anger and change it. We start to reverse the whole thing and start letting it go, giving it up. And in the end we bring our mindfulness to see that anger is not self. It's just an object of mind coming from delusion, lack of mindfulness, lack of understanding. And we have to bring up mindfulness and reflect on it. It's not self. If it's not self, we can definitely let go of it. We can definitely change. But we have to practice. Hi Ajahn, thank you for guiding us in this retreat. Please explain how do we practice mindfulness in breathing as we chanted last night. For example, I breathe, experiencing the whole body. Should we be mindful of our body as well as the breath? When we practice mindfulness of breathing, we're using the breath as our object, you could even say our vehicle. Our job is to be mindful of the feeling of the in-breath and the out-breath, the sensation of the breathing. Know the breathing. So a good place to do that is at the tip of your nostrils. That feeling as the breath passes in, there's a break, and then the out-breath comes, and it goes at the same place. So the more you practice, the more you can just keep your mind in one spot, say at the tip of your nostrils. Some people at the lungs, some people at the abdomen, but the way Ajahn Chah encouraged, he said, try the tip of the nostrils. You just have to find that feeling. You maybe make it very clear to yourself at the beginning of your meditation. You breathe in a few times deeply, so you know what that feeling's like. Then you let the breath go naturally, but you keep watching, keep knowing that sensation, knowing you're breathing in, knowing you're breathing out. As you chant that sutta, you see every verse is the same. Breathing in, breathing out. So your first task is to make your mind stay with the breath. Pay attention to the breath, know the breath. So you have to let go of all the other distractions, the hindrances. That's where a lot of the struggle and the frustration is in the beginning of practice, is learning to do this. Very frustrating. Just like any skill, it takes time, effort. Once your mind is getting more used to staying with the breath, then you have your mind there. It's with the breath. You have this sense of the mind gathering together in one spot. So that spot feels more energetic, there's more awareness of that spot. It might be tip of your nostrils, some people forehead, some people chest. There's this sense of the mind gathering together in one place. You've got it more under your control as long as you maintain your effort, bring up mindfulness, your mind is right there. You feel calmer, more peaceful, brighter, especially because you've let go of a lot of mental distraction. If you let go of sleepiness, distraction, doubt, worry, you get a lot of energy from that. So you feel more relaxed, more calm, more bright. And then it's easier for your mind now to turn to be mindful of other aspects of the breath or the whole body or some of our mental activity. So we say mindfulness, I breathe in, experiencing the whole body. So if your mind is now with the breath, you're mindful of the breath and you know where your mind is, it's a much more refined state than normal. When your mind is refined, its awareness is now very clear, very refined, so you can start to pick up and know things that you normally wouldn't really know. So one thing you notice is that the breath actually flows around the whole body, even though it flows into the lungs. The effect of the breath is it oxygenates the blood, so we have blood cells full of oxygen going all around the body. We also have air in our body. We have spaces and cavities, and we have movement of air. We belch, we fart, we have movements of air. Even just, they say it's the extension of the body, so you move your arms, a little bit like hydraulics. The men might know when you have hydraulic machinery, it moves because of the pressure and the liquid and the pressure in the tubes. Your body is a bit like that. It's full of air. And if your mind is mindful of the breath and very absorbed into the breath, well, you can become aware of the whole body through the breath, because it's one part of the body. one element, the Vayu Dhatu. If you're just fixed on this one thing, it becomes very prominent in your consciousness. Everything else fades away. So some people, they meditate and they become aware of the whole body being like kind of wisps of breath. It can come up in different ways for different people, but you're aware of your body, you're aware of different sensations and how they affect the mind, which is merged with the breath. So you feel pain, but maybe you can watch pain in a detached way now that your mind is mindful of the breath. It's very much easier to be aware of a painful feeling, a sensation in the body arising, passing away in a detached way, because you're watching from a place of mindfulness with the breath. The breath calms the body down. The more mindful you are of the breath, the body calms down, the mind calms down. Then you can see things clearly and without them disturbing you. So you can watch thoughts and feelings come and go. You can watch the whole body with mindfulness. Even if you have some pain, it doesn't have to disturb you. So people find they reach a point where they can sit longer now that they're with the breath. Maybe all the pain disappears completely for a while, or they have some pain but they can be with it. It doesn't bother them, they just know it. Oh, there's pain there. If the mind really merges with the breath, don't feel any pain at all. Not disturbed by sounds of other people. You become solid. You're completely, the feeling is like you're completely full because the mind is merged with the breath. And the whole body, your experience of your own body becomes a bit different than normal. It's internal. You're aware of the body internally. You're aware of it through sensations. And the breath is like your mirror. It helps you to mirror the way the body is. Then even some of these other questions become more obvious. Say like, you'll notice when you're angry, your breath is affected. It changes. So if you're becoming angry and you do a lot of mindfulness of breathing, you notice anger coming very quickly. Before you're actually fully angry, you notice it arising because of the breath, the change of the breath, any tension, different sensations, you notice it. So you can act swiftly, quickly, to resolve your anger, deal with it well. Same with other kinds of emotional states, fear, lust, worry. They affect your breath, your breathing, and if your mind is mindful of the breathing, then you quickly will see different moods coming up and how they affect you, and you'll see the suffering. You'll see the suffering of anger, the suffering of fear, suffering of worry. So it's very easy then the next step is to let go of any clinging or wrong thinking at that time. And you use your breath like an anchor. There's a lot more I could say, and maybe I will over coming days. Hello and thanks Ajahn. I have cured myself of depression by being mindful and by reciting Buddho with every out-breath. Can you please explain how it works on the mind to enable me to cure myself? It sounds like you've explained it. If you're fully mindful of your object, Buddho, the mind cannot go into its mood of depression. If you're fully mindful of Buddho, that's all there is. Depression is made up of many negative thoughts, which become like a negative view of yourself, of your life, the world, negative memories we hold on to, and then often we get stressful, painful feelings in the body associated, and the body is affected as well. So it's a very strong kind of karmic conditioning. If you're retraining your mind by developing Buddho as a meditation object, Buddho is a very powerful meditation word. You're thinking of the Buddha, the wisest person. The Buddha has great compassion, wisdom, purity. It's a very powerful word. You keep focusing your mind on that. It naturally has a very calming effect, brightens the mind. The complete opposite of depression, which darkens the mind. So if you're strong enough and determined enough, you can kind of pull your mind away from its habit of thinking the negative thoughts, the feelings, the moods, towards Buddha over and over again, or gradually you're retraining your mind, and the habit will be broken, hopefully. Because all of these, the different aspects of depression, they can all be treated. Obviously, severe depression, sometimes you need medication to help. The doctors will give you medication because you're just thinking so much, you can't sleep, can't concentrate, can't do anything. So often they give you medication to calm you down, to help. But eventually you also have to develop the mindfulness to break these habits of always going into the negative way of thinking. As a habit becomes established, then it becomes like your view. So you always look at things in a dark, depressed way, look at yourself, others. It's fed by anger, ill will. Sometimes things happen to us. Sometimes we do it to ourselves, we make mistakes or bad choices, then we get depressed about it. Sometimes it's very old karma from last life or something, and some terrible thing happens to us and it really traumatizes us, and then we become depressed because we keep holding on to the memory, thinking about it over and over again. There's many different triggers. Sometimes people, they do the wrong thing, they get depressed, and then instead of getting good advice, practicing mindfulness, working with their mind, maybe they just go off and drink more, take drugs, or do things which actually make the whole thing worse. So what we do in our life is also important with depression, how we lead our life. We can do things that are skillful to help us through moods of depression, where we're doing things that bring up more joy, more happiness, like helping others, practicing generosity, kindness to others, doing skillful things, and then maybe developing some skill with the precepts, not drinking, not taking drugs, not taking our anger out on others, which often makes us feel worse, learning that restraint and the mindfulness there. There's many things we can do in our life which will help us to improve our state of mind, although it may take time. But the shortcut, the quick way is just fix your mind on Buddha and don't give in to the negative thoughts. Just keep with Buddha, and eventually those negative thoughts will lose their power over the mind and you can break a habit. You see that in the time of the Buddha, sometimes people very stressed, traumatized, like the lady Patachara lost all her kids, her husband, her parents, all in one go. Went completely, lost all her mindfulness, her wisdom, became completely mentally unstable, deranged, walking around naked. And everybody was just shoving her away because she's just like mumbling, completely lost the plot, suffering greatly. But then she came across the Buddha, and the Buddha said, come and listen to a Dhamma talk. And gradually he taught her the Dhamma. Her mindfulness recovered, her wisdom recovered. Eventually she went on to become an Arahant. So these stories are just pointing out that the human mind can be helped in all situations. Sometimes it takes a lot of time and effort, but it can always be helped, brought back from different states of suffering. Venerable Sir, how to develop mindfulness? Well, that's what we're here for. Samma sati is a factor of the Eightfold Path. Samma sati, mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of the mind itself, mindfulness of dhammas, mental objects, the way suffering arises, the way to end suffering, the Four Noble Truths. There's an awful lot of things to practice mindfulness with, but this is why often in a retreat you keep things a little bit simple. Do a lot of breathing meditation or using Buddho, like the last question. Because you're developing mindfulness, just that ability to know yourself in the present moment, anchoring the mind with a meditation object. As you expand out from that, well, you become more mindful of your speech, your actions, your precepts, your posture, and then the mental activity, everything that's arising, feelings, thoughts. This is what we call vipassana, which is based on mindfulness. You bring up more and more mindfulness, and then you direct your mindfulness to contemplate the three characteristics of existence. Everything is impermanent, everything is dukkha, unsatisfactory in its nature, changing, degenerating. Everything is without self, should not be taken as self. These three areas where you use mindfulness to develop wisdom. Sometimes we develop mindfulness just reflecting on the Dhamma. You bring up some wisdom, so maybe you see something, in your life, you see somebody suffering and you see what happened that led up to that suffering, and you say, oh, this is how suffering arises. If you act in a certain way, this leads to suffering, and you just reflect like that. Mindfulness arises, you become aware, oh, I better be more mindful of what I say and what I do to avoid suffering like that person. Sometimes you hear the news, like today we hear the news, somebody's passed away. You become mindful then, mindful of the impermanence of life. Every day people are dying, so when you notice that or you hear the news, it makes you mindful. Different situations bring out mindfulness. When we open our mind and reflect, then mindfulness arises. Sometimes we do it in a more concentrated way. We sit meditation, we walk meditation, and focus the mind to bring up mindfulness of an object. Sometimes we listen to the Dhamma. It brings up mindfulness. When you hear a Dhamma talk or read a Dhamma book, that's why we put sayings on the trees. Ajahn Chah used to say, the trees are teaching us. They make you mindful. Maybe you're caught up in your mood walking along, then you see some Dhamma teaching on a tree and it wakes you up a bit. And when you're mindful, it's like you're waking up out of your delusion, out of your dream, your fantasy, or your mood. There's many ways that stimulate mindfulness. Another one, the Buddha said, is associating with other people who practice mindfulness. If you're with someone who's mindful, it encourages you to be more mindful. If you're with someone who's very unmindful, it's a challenge to keep mindful, isn't it? So this is why, you're not out partying tonight. You could be. When you go to a party, very difficult to maintain mindfulness. Drinking, eating, talking, all kinds of things, dancing, whatever. When you're in a meditation retreat, everyone is putting effort into mindfulness practice, so it helps us. It's conducive, it's supportive. If you have just one mindful friend, what we call a Kalyano mitta, they can endlessly be helping you to be more mindful in your life. They remind you of the Dhamma. They show through example the way they do things, the way they talk. Makes you mindful. Best of all, you live with a good teacher, you become very mindful. Like when you live with a teacher you consider to be an Arya Pugala or an Arahant, an enlightened teacher, you're very mindful around a teacher like that. Because you're aware, if I do something wrong, say something wrong, or I might make some bad karma here. So you're always on your toes, very careful. If it's a teacher like Ajahn Chah, Ajahn Mahabua, or the different teachers some of us have met. Maybe you even believe they read your mind, they know your mind, so you become super mindful. You don't even want to think a bad thought, because you know, they'll know, and you feel so embarrassed. And occasionally, they even catch monks out. Luang Por Thun was here a few weeks ago. He's saying, there was one day when he was a young monk, he's walking on Bindabata, and he's thinking, at the moment we're doing a lot of work in the monastery, and I'm being very strict with my food, eating just a little, being very mindful and strict. I think now it's time to just eat a lot more, because I'm using more energy. It seemed like a good reason, but then he walked into the monastery, he met Ajahn Chah. Ajahn Chah said, today you're going to take more food, are you? Ajahn Chah knew exactly what he was thinking. It's like, felt so embarrassed, like, the greed is taking over. Or sometimes monks are sitting in a car travelling with Ajahn Chah, they're thinking about their girlfriend, old girlfriend. And Ajahn Chah just turns around, gives them a look. It's like, he knows. You live with a teacher like that, you become very mindful. You don't want to sleep very much, because you're around them, their mind is very alert, very awake. You don't want to think inappropriate thoughts, and obviously speak or do things. You don't want to do that. You still do make mistakes. You lose your mindfulness, but you want to gain it back very quickly when you're with such a teacher. It's embarrassing if you lose your mindfulness next to a teacher like that. You're embarrassed, you feel bad, you feel uncomfortable. So you quickly want to re-establish mindfulness. So monks are always being embarrassed because they start talking, and the teacher walks around the corner and catches them just, talking too much. So, teacher's here. If you ever lived with Ajahn Mahabua, he had a practice. He'd always walk around the monastery. There's many little paths through the forest, and monks would be doing different things, and suddenly he'd just turn up unannounced, out of the blue. Suddenly Ajahn Mahabua is there, and he's a very powerful figure, a little bit frightening for the monks sometimes. Suddenly he'd just turn up, you walk around the corner, he's there. And he often would even make it worse. He'd say, "What are you doing?" You go, "Up, up, up." You have to have a quick answer, otherwise you feel really bad. You say, "Just sweeping." And then he'd be really sharp. You say, "If you're sweeping, why is your broom behind your back?" or something. Or you're talking to a friend and says, "Sweeping with your friend." I say, that kind of sweeping. Or he'd catch monks, he'd hear the noise when they're talking or banging around, and he'd make some comment. And I was there once, one monk went down the steps while we were all eating the meal. He was returning some of the trays of food, like here is the same. And he tripped and dropped the tray. Bang! Because he lost his mindfulness. He wasn't watching where he was going. Ajahn Mahabua is just eating his meal. And he said, "It's a lot of fun in this monastery. People throw things all over the place." Monk is like, been caught out. Wasn't very mindful. It's like that. Well, another time we were staying there, somebody had taken a plastic chair from the kitchen, because the lay people had a few plastic chairs, but in the old days you weren't allowed a chair in your kuti. You had to sit on the floor. But one monk went down to the kitchen and he sneaked it away, took it to his kuti so he could sit on a chair. He said, "This is so nice." Next morning, Ajahn Mahabua gave a talk. These days they're pinching the chairs, taking them all over the place. You see little groups of monks walking through the forest in the middle of the night with chairs. I don't know what the monastery is coming to. And all the monks are going, "How does he know?" It's like that. You live with a good teacher, they make you mindful, make you aware of what you're doing. It's helpful, but it's also painful sometimes. Painful when you become mindful, isn't it? Sometimes we like to indulge our moods, even if they're wrong, we still indulge them. We like to sleep. One monk had a friend, he staying with Ajahn Chah. It was 3 a.m. and it was the first day of the retreat. And he was just asleep, and they'd gone to bed at like almost midnight. So he'd only had 3 hours sleep maximum. So he's really tired. It's just come out to 3 a.m. and you have a morning bell, then you have to go to the meditation. It's like, oh, maybe today, it's only the first day, or maybe I'll just catch up with my sleep now and I'll do more meditation later. So he's just lying there, he'd woken up, but he was considering turning over to sleep more. Suddenly he saw Ajahn Chah's face floating in front of him. It's like, oh, no, I can't sleep anymore. Got to get up, put my robe on, quickly go to the hall. You stay with a good teacher, it's like that. Sometimes you have visions, sometimes you have your own sense of what's right and wrong come up because you're close to the teacher. Oh, there's a question in Thai. มีความฝันเห็นสัตว์วัวควายถูกฆ่าเห็นตับไตไส้ในMaybe I'll answer in English first. เดี๋ยวตอบเป็นภาษาอังกฤษก่อน There's a question about this person used to have dreams seeing cows and buffaloes being killed, slaughtered, and then seeing their insides and seeing their injuries from being slaughtered. Very kind of unpleasant dreams. These dreams don't come up so much now. The person wants to know what kind of message are these dreams giving when you get them, because they were getting them regularly. Well, there's different reasons we have dreams. Sometimes it's just from our own mental proliferation, thinking a lot, not very peaceful. Our dreams reflect that. Sometimes it's karma. We maybe have done things in the past which have left a strong impression in our mind, so they come up as dreams when we're falling asleep. So sometimes they say if you see corpses of cows, buffaloes, maybe in the past, if this life, or maybe even a past life, you've been involved with killing. Maybe you've been a butcher or a farmer or something, and they've left an impression on the mind. And they say maybe even the consciousness of the cow, the buffalo, whatever animals you've killed in the past, it still is attached to you because you made the karma of killing them. And it's like a karmic debt. They're still following you. So the suggestion is usually when you have that kind of dream, to share merit. Even in the middle of the night, you wake up, you might call it a nightmare, bad dream. Well, you wake up and you meditate and you share merit with the beings that maybe you've harmed, and you maybe determine never to kill again. So, from now on I'll keep the precept, I'm not going to kill. And then maybe in daily life you practice metta consciously every day. And this person said those dreams faded, so maybe after a while of practicing Dhamma, sharing merit, maybe it's a sign the mind itself is free from the memory and the regret over those incidents. Maybe those beings are no longer bothering them. Or maybe it's just a sign the mind is more peaceful in itself. There's one man I knew who in Thailand used to work in a slaughterhouse every day, killing cows, buffalo. And he said after a while he got to the point he'd go home and he'd be dreaming about buffaloes and cows screaming. And he could tell the mooing of these beings was like they're suffering and they're unhappy, they're sad. He could just sense it. So eventually he quit the job. He said it was good money, but he just couldn't do it anymore. So he ended up buying a taxi, became a taxi driver. He doesn't have to kill. But he said he was still haunted by the same memories and those dreams. So after a while he joined a charity that was involved with purchasing buffaloes and cows from the slaughterhouse alive before they're killed, taking them to farms and letting them live out their life till they die of old age. So they're saving them from the slaughterhouse. And he'd do that on his days off. He'd go and help them. ฝันเรื่องวัวควายที่เคยถูกฆ่าก็อาจจะหมายถึงเราเองก็อาจจะเคยฆ่าก็ได้เนาะชาตินี้ชาติที่แล้วอาจจะเคยร่วมฆ่าวัวฆ่าควายวิญญาณก็ยังตามเราจิตก็ยังไม่สงบเรื่องนี้ยังไม่ได้อโหสิกรรมยังไม่จบเราก็ต้องแผ่เมตตาอุทิศกุศลสม่ำเสมอตั้งใจอยู่ในศีลข้อที่หนึ่งไม่ให้ขาดไม่ให้ตัดชีวิตแผ่เมตตาอุทิศกุศลสม่ำเสมอจนกระทั่งถ้าเขารับได้วิญญาณรับได้ไปเกิดแล้วเราปรารถนาขอให้เขาไปเกิดดีก็ไม่มารบกวนเราแล้วจิตใจก็เริ่มสงบลงนี่ก็ตั้งใจอยู่ในศีลตั้งใจจะไม่ฆ่าสัตว์เบียดสัตว์ต่อไปก็กลับเป็นสิ่งที่ดีจากความทุกข์ที่มีนิมิตมีฝันที่ทำให้เราทุกข์ก็กลับมาให้เกิดปัญญาก็เกิดสิ่งที่ดีได้เราต้องอโหสิกรรมยอมรับสิ่งที่อาจจะเคยทำในอดีตยอมรับแล้วก็ปล่อยวางอโหสิกรรมแผ่กุศลไปAre you tired? There's still more questions. You want to carry on or tomorrow? Huh? Carry on? ยังมีอีกเยอะ Can we help someone with depression? If you think it is a medical condition and only medication can help, or do you think it is a medical condition only medication can help? Well, I've talked a little bit about depression. We all get depressed sometimes. It's natural when things go wrong, things happen that we don't want. For many of us, though, it's just a passing mood. We don't let it disturb the mind too much. We know how to raise our thinking, be mindful, accept whatever's happened and move on. That's our aim. Some people, though, it goes in more deep. Maybe it's an old karmic habit to really hold on to negative thoughts, and maybe they have had a lot of trauma in their past. It's harder to let go of. So in the extreme cases, then we go to the GP and they often prescribe medication to help. But generally the medication is not the... our long-term goal is to get off medication and to use mindfulness, wise reflection to change our habits of thinking, to change our view, to move on from whatever unfortunate experiences have happened, to be able to let go of them, let go of the past and let go of the habits of negative thinking that keep forming in the present, to recognize what's going on and to start letting go of that. But some people who are very depressed, well, they need medication to help, and so obviously they have to see their GP for that. Other people, they're able to do it through meditation, support, having, again, good Kalyano mitta, good friends. Sometimes we need to change our lifestyle, so often they associate depression with not keeping precepts, not leading a particularly skillful life. Sometimes we drink too much, take drugs, sometimes we gamble, do different things which, although can distract us and occupy us at the time, they often leave an impression in the heart where our mindfulness is weakened and our emotional state gets worse and more exaggerated. So often it's the worst thing we can do. If you're depressed, then to keep getting drunk, often it makes it worse. So you have to see the link there and start adjusting lifestyle. Look at how we spend our time, who we're with, how we spend our time. This will help as well. I've talked a little bit about depression, so maybe I'll just leave that there. Ajahn, could you explain the significance and relevance of not eating after midday? Why do we do it, and why are we allowed to consume only some things, like dark chocolate, but not milk chocolate? Well, the way we practice in the monastery comes, particularly in the forest tradition, it comes from the Vinaya, Theravada Vinaya, that we still have today. We're lucky. The rules are still, we have the texts and the rules are available for us to know, and we use them as skillful means to develop a number of qualities: renunciation, contentment, mindfulness, discipline, wise reflection. And the Buddha originally made the rule about not eating after middays because originally there was not that rule. Monks sometimes would go out into the villages looking for food even at night, and sometimes it brought criticism. There's one particular monk who was standing outside the back door of a house, and the lady of the house is cooking the evening meal. And you know how it is, often the evening meal is the best meal of the day, so it smells good. Maybe it's quite attractive for the monks. They're standing there hoping to get a bit of the good stuff. And she came out and saw the monk, and there was a flash of lightning, and she thought it was a ghost. So she dropped her food and with a clatter and ran in, going, "Oh, what is that, a ghost?" And then they found out later it was a monk, and they criticized the monk to the Buddha. Said, "What is the monk hanging around the village like a ghost for? Shouldn't be doing that." The Buddha made a rule, said, in future monks can only go alms round in the morning, and they must finish their food by midday. But there's, like many of our rules, there's many advantages and reasons why the Buddha might have given the rule. One is just to make life simple, make monks simple to look after. You don't have to keep bringing food to the monastery, and monks don't keep having to go out looking for food all day long. We just do it in the morning. We have one main meal a day. Very easy, streamlined, makes it easy to run the monastery and look after the monks. Or if they're out travelling, it's easy to look after them. It's good for meditation, because if you eat in the first part of the day, you gradually digest your food, which takes a lot of energy, and then by the end of the day you feel very light. And that's good for meditation. Once you get used to this habit, the lifestyle, meditation in the evening, often you get very good results. You'll probably all know, if you try and sit meditation at 12 o'clock after your meal, it's tough. And it's the same with lay people. They come home from work, and what do? They eat a nice big meal of food, and then they say, "Oh, the monk said I should go and meditate." So they go and sit down, and 5 minutes, can't meditate for very long, because their stomach is full of food in the evening. It's much harder to meditate. So eating in the morning is partly for supporting meditation, partly for simplicity, frugality. But then the Buddha understood some monks, some practitioners, sometimes they feel weak in the evening. They've been travelling a lot, working a lot, or they're ill. So he allowed some allowables. So we have a number of things. We have sugar, molasses, ghee, butter, and a substance which we now call cheese, although it probably wasn't exactly the same in those days. That allows us to eat cheese. And these are for dealing with feelings of hunger, pain, illness. So sometimes people need medication in the evening. If you have a little bit of cheese or dark chocolate is allowed, because we can have certain things made from different seeds, coffee, tea, different leaves, medicinal leaves and so on. There's a variety of things we can have. That's just enough for maybe you to have some medicine in the evening if you need to have medicine. Or it's just enough to give you a little bit of energy when you're feeling very weak or tired, or to stop you getting ill. So the idea is you're not eating substantial food, but you have enough options just to give you something if it's available, and it's not always available. So this is a tradition and a way of practice that's developed over thousands of years, and we just keep up this same tradition, and it's quite quite supportive of the meditative lifestyle. And most people find they can get used to it. It's not too difficult. Oh, last question. How did you come to be a monk? Well, maybe only give you the short version tonight. When I was about 15 or 16, I saw a TV program about Buddhist monks in Thailand at Ajahn monastery, which somehow sparked a very strong interest in me in the Buddhist teachings and the thought, oh, you can still live as a Buddhist monk in this day and age. That was a very important thought for me. Somehow I was attracted to the practice of meditation and what the Buddha taught, was reading Buddhist books. But seeing that program really stuck in my mind. And I was aware Ajahn Chah also had foreign monks, not just Thai nationals, but foreigners living with him. So I thought, oh, it's possible, you can live like that. Just eat food out of a bowl, no money, live very simply in the forest. I was surprised, but also impressed. And then after that, I was reading more Buddhist books, and then I learned meditation at a meditation class. And meditating, I found it very painful, like everyone else. Knees hurt, back hurt, mind wasn't peaceful to start, but I had something inside me that said, keep doing it and it will get better. So I did. So I kept practicing every day. Once a week I go to the meditation class, but then I practice on my own. Gradually over time I became more peaceful and I started to understand more the Buddhist teachings in practice, not just on paper, but seeing how we create suffering ourselves through our actions, through our wrong thinking. I could see that. Even though I couldn't yet free my mind from suffering, but I could see, oh, it's possible, human beings can do it. So I kept thinking, maybe this is a good way to lead my life. You know, like anyone else at that age, like when I was 18, 19, I also had friends go out socializing, and I'd sometimes sit there thinking, why do we do this? Why do we go out to bars, go out listening to music, entertainment, all the things young people do? You know, I could see it was happiness, but temporary happiness, nothing lasting. So I just kept thinking, I should pursue the meditation practice. And the meditation teacher, one of them that I knew, said, why not go to Thailand? So I went to Thailand, and very fortunate that very quickly in Bangkok I went to Wat Bawon, big temple, where there was an Australian monk teaching meditation in English, and he recommended going to see Ajahn Chah. He actually gave me the address and told me how to get there. I was very lucky. I didn't have to waste much time looking for a teacher. I'd seen Ajahn Chah, then I met someone in Bangkok and they sent me straight there. And that was it. Once I saw his monastery, saw the monks, Thai monks, Western monks, I thought, oh, this is something I can try. And I didn't know how long it would last or if I could be a monk my whole life, but I thought I would try it. So I'm still trying, I haven't stopped. But as I was saying earlier today at lunchtime, as you keep practicing, you get more wisdom, more peace. You're keeping precepts, so you're not creating any negative karma, or not very much. So little by little it becomes more pleasant. You get more happiness, more joy, and you don't need all the other things that people seem to need in the world. You don't need a lot of money, you don't need a lot of possessions, you don't need a wife, you don't need many things like that. You can be happy through your practice, and then you can also be happy through sharing what you know with others, helping others. And that's how a monk sustains themselves, through the goodness of their life, the peace of mind, the understanding, the freeing the mind from suffering. So then, in modern language, people ask, oh, you want to be a monk for the rest of your life? Well, for me, I'd say it's a no-brainer. Who would want the suffering of a layperson? But you're not monks, so you probably can't see it from my point of view. But at least you can get a taste of it, because you're living like monks at the moment. Monks and nuns, keeping precepts, camping in the forest. You're doing something very rare, but making very powerful good karma for yourself and the people who know you. Maybe some of your friends don't understand about meditation. They say, "Why are you doing this?" And you can share your experience with them, maybe help them to understand a little bit more about what we do and why. So, as somebody asked me once, I didn't become a monk because I had a broken heart. By becoming a monk, I actually broke someone's heart, but another story. Anyway, we'll stop there because